Welcome everyone to What the Force, and welcome to a new episode of Clone Wars Special Report covering every episode of the Clone Wars. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and with me is...
Kyle, I am.
Is that your Yoda?
Indeed, it may be.
It's not bad. Halfway decent Yoda.
It's or Grover.
Yeah, but like same actor, right? Can you do a Miss Piggy?
No.
No? No Miss Piggy for you?
I mean, I don't ever try to be Miss Piggy, so I don't think it would be fair to make weird attempts on a podcast.
Fine.
Yes.
We are covering Season 7, Episode 5, Gone with a Trace. And this is our first Ahsoka-centric episode.
Goodbye, Bad Batch.
Goodbye, Bad Batch. Never to be seen again. Or so we think.
I have no idea.
I don't know.
I'd be confused to see them again.
I mean, well, like not... I wonder if we'll see them in like the last episodes with like covering like the end of the war. That would be an interesting choice to see them come back.
Like on a recap session?
Mm-hmm. So let's cover off our fortune cookie words of wisdom.
Ooh, let's talk about things you should know before you tune into this episode.
Oh, hey, yes, that's a good thing to do.
Because we didn't really have to do too much. And they covered so much in the recap for the beginning of the arc for the Bad Batch. I don't feel like they did as much for this episode.
I mean, literally, it walked off where, like, they showed where it, like, basically... Look at all this bad stuff that happened to Ahsoka, and this is the reason she's left the Jedi Order, and this is where she's at. But it's all the stuff that happened in Season 6.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so what do we need to know before you enter into this episode?
Well, I mean, Ahsoka seems like she's running away.
Yeah.
Ahsoka seems really sad.
Mm-hmm.
And also doesn't really seem to know where she's going. Like, both like, philosophically and... physically.
Yeah, and so like with that, the fortune cookie is actually quite apropos.
Super relevant.
Yeah. And it was, if there is no path in front of you, create your own.
I thought it was, if there is no path before you, create your own.
Maybe it was before you. You say it again.
If there is no path before you, create your own. So I have lots I would like to talk about this, but what do you have to say about it?
So this actually just struck me very much as a Joseph Campbellinian saying. It could have passed up. Like I could put it out there on Twitter and be like, "There's no path before you. Create your own," and like attribute it to Joseph Campbell. And people like, yeah, of course that was Joseph Campbell. But he often said things very similar to that, like if the path before you is clear, it's probably someone else's, which is actually quite a famous quote from him. But it does align to his ideas of the hero's journey, which is it's supposed to be your own. You're not supposed to follow anybody else's path, really. And you're supposed to forge your own, and it's going to be unique for yourself. So it does align with how he very much thought of the hero's journey and people's journeys in and of themselves.
Joseph Campbell is so funny because he's not like, we attribute all these quotes to him, but everything he said is just an observation on other things.
I know, it's literally like hey, stories function this way. He's
literally the guy we've been cribbing on for all of stories for all time. Like, oh, we should just see what Campbell's writing in the essay and just copy him.
He summarized it. Yeah. Yeah. We're all looking over his shoulder in language class, and we're like, what would he do? Vogler saw it and misinterpreted the whole thing, though.
So there's this quote.
Yes.
And it's been attributed to both Ralph Waldo Emerson, great American poet, as well as to Walt Whitman.
Interesting.
Also great American poet.
Yeah.
And it goes like this. I will not follow where the path may lead, but I will go where there is no path, and I will leave a trail.
Interesting. Very like entrepreneurial in a way.
Where it's just like forge your own way, and when you do, others will follow because they'll be able to. And it's actually a quote from Muriel Strode, who is like the female version of Walt Whitman. She's this ridiculously infamous or lack of famous poet from the late 1800s to the 1900s. And she led this crazy, amazing life. And I highly recommend you go out and you find out who Muriel Strode is, because it feels in some way like the things that she wrote about and the things that she has to say in her books of poetry are super relevant to Ahsoka Tano's journey in many ways.
Interesting. I'm excited to see this.
Yes.
And have you pull out comparisons.
Yes. Muriel Strode. I only discovered her after watching this episode and seeing like if there's no path before you create your own. Where does that come from? It's basically a cribbed version of that quote.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
But it does feel like very hero's journey in a way, you know, like, hey, go and this is going to be your own path. This is going to be your own journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, to your point, Campbell was just emphasizing what we see in fiction and mythic stories and sacred stories around the world, and basically just giving us the highlights. So
yeah, this
it's just a common thing.
This quote seems very explorish, like go out and explore the world and go down paths that others haven't crossed, and also very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Right? You see that the idea of making toast, you could make toast easier. Why does everything I do come back to making toast? But the concept of the toaster is very entrepreneurial, right? We want warmed bread, and we don't want to do this whole oven thing or a whole stovetop thing. You could just create the heat on both sides of the bread where you want it for the same duration.
I do also think that it's like, you know, the I want moment of Ahsoka Tano. She's finally realizing like the Jedi aren't for her. She's trying to figure out who she's going to be and what she's going to be about. And I think that this journey is going to take her a very long time, and it's going to go up and down. And
I think it's going to take like 5 episodes.
But what I'm saying is that even by the time that she is in Rebels, she's established, but it takes her a very long time to get to that point.
Yes.
This is a very interesting episode for us in that we are exploring Ahsoka in this new journey, and she ends up, you know, leaving the Jedi Temple. And that's actually exactly what we hear when, you know, the voiceover is just the exact immediate reasons why she left the Jedi temple. And suddenly she's in coveralls. And she's riding on a motorcycle that she knew she shouldn't have bought. She bought it anyways. She left the Jedi Temple. She doesn't know where she's going. And she decides to descend into the Undercity of Coruscant. What did you think of the introduction to Ahsoka in the start of the show?
So we're not really introduced to Ahsoka at the start of the show.
No, but it has been the first time we've seen her, you know, in 2 seasons.
Fair. But it's weird because we're actually introduced to 1313.
Right. The district, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Which I did not know anything about until somebody was like, yeah, it's something down here. It's the best garage in 1313. And I was like, is that a relevant number of reasonable import? And so I was like, I went and did a Google search and said, what is 1313? And then there's a failed live action TV show from George Lucas himself based on 1313. Yes. And then there's an actual video game that had a trailer and was almost ready for release. Like it was close for release. And then Disney bought Lucasfilm, and it got axed. It's done. It's trash. It's a really cute, interesting video. And the reason I can bring it up is because her approach on the entrance, the portal down to 1313, is like spot on for imagery to 1313, the game itself.
Like 1313 was the setting of Star Wars Underworld, which was the big TV show that I've talked about before. I'm like, this would have been really cool and would have explored a lot of interesting things.
Possibly the name of that show too.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, neat.
And it was literally the name of the video game. But then in the video game trailer, there's this like approach to the big spirally portal down to the underworld, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's almost shot like all of the background of the skyscrapers in the distance are the same in the in Ahsoka's drive up to the portal and what you see in the trailer.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't put 2 and 2 together until you just mentioned that. But yeah, 1313 was the big place that was supposed to have happened. I didn't know about the video game. That's really cool.
Yeah, the video game's really neat.
So it's definitely paying homage to those other projects that were either not made or delayed, or maybe they're trying to see if there's interest in them before they explore them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And she ends up having mechanical problems. There's a lot of cool moments where she is trying to control her bike and runs over cars and walls. Very Jedi Fallen Order.
People sure are concerned about footprints on their wax job.
Yeah, there's a lot of complaining.
Almost dying.
Well, and it's really interesting. Like, what is this portal used for? Because is there underground roadways? Because it seemed like there was large ships, small speeders. Like, this definitely seemed like almost like an interchange in some ways from the surface to below.
Yeah, and it's definitely a whirlpool interchange because they all have to spiral. There's nothing in the middle.
Yeah.
Because I think larger ships would go up through the middle down to the lower highways and byways of the under cities of Coruscant, which is mind-numbing. Just how big this planet of cities is.
The city-wide planet, yeah. She ends up crash landing on Trace's garage and almost falling off the edge. And we are introduced to Trace Martez,
played by Bridget Kelly.
Do you know where she's from?
She's done a bunch of stuff, but nothing Star Warsian. Yeah. A lot of actual actress stuff in TV shows and whatnot. So not a classical voice actress, as it were. So a ton of physical things.
And we have the offer of, hey, I can help you out for money or favors or exchange. And this very much sets the setting of give and take that 1313 exists in.
Yeah, but also Ahsoka's she has just no faith in anyone. If there's no faith in the Jedi, who she believed were the righteous defenders of the galaxy, and she's like, why are you helping me? I don't have that much money. This relationship starts off very, very
oddly
economical.
Yeah, I was actually how to me, it is such an example of pure capitalism, because there's no government in 1313. It's just what do you owe me, what do I owe you, from an economics perspective, and that's the value of a person.
Yeah, well, Trace says it exactly when she says, down here everything has a price. And then Ahsoka's like, why are you helping me? And Trace says, seemed like the right thing to do. You can leave if you want. Yeah.
It was odd, yeah. And considering Ahsoka comes from an environment where it's like, I need new clothes, I go and requisition them from the temple. Yep. I need a new droid, I go and ask for one. She's never existed in an environment where she had to pay for anything. And everything that she did for other people was entirely based on compassion and selflessness to other people.
Yep.
It's very interesting to see this framed, but it doesn't last long, because as soon as she starts to try to fix her own bike and gets frustrated and walks away and has these moments of contemplation about what am I doing? Where am I going? Expressing them out loud, Trace immediately decides to just help her out.
Yeah. It's so So we're now inside the garage.
Mm-hmm.
We get to kind of get to sense and get a feel for who is Trace, what's her want, and how is her relationship going to be structured with Ahsoka Tano.
She wants to be free of Coruscants.
And then Trace?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Ahsoka literally didn't go up. She went down.
Yeah, Ahsoka wants to be, I think, trying the opposite of everything that she knew previously. At least that's where her gut is taking her, is don't be where I was before. I was on the surface. I lived that life. Now I'm down below. I'm living this life.
I feel like she's still reeling.
Yeah.
That she's still in trauma. She's still in shock from the trauma of the severance of her life.
Mm-hmm.
That was the path that lay before her. And so she's now forging her own path downwards, and she doesn't want help from people. She doesn't have any money to barter with people either. Wants to be very clear. I can't pay for this.
Yeah. I think she would have accepted help if the relationship had been framed that way from Trace. Like, if Trace had said, I will help you, but she never said that from the beginning. But she accepted the help once that happened. So I don't know about that. I think it's just...
Well, I think we get a feel for what... Like, we don't know why Trace is so money-grubbing right away. And then we get an understanding. Oh.
It's her sister.
Yeah. Her sister's debts hang over her head as well.
Yeah.
And she's just trying to find a way to crawl out from underneath them.
Of all of them, yeah.
And she's also doesn't seem like she's got much business because she's working on her own project, her own ship to get her off world to do her own thing. But in scene 3, they're in the garage here, and Trace says, after Ahsoka just basically loses it, which is the equivalent you would have for like a new friendship, like just walks away, is done.
Yeah.
Speeder won't work, won't get any help. And Trace says, look, you can stay here as long as you like, if you can pay me.
Yeah.
And there's no sense keeping you here if you're gonna be miserable. So that's when she chooses to help. Then she says, like, look, apparently you're so down on your luck, I can do something small.
Like, would we classify Ahsoka at rock bottom yet?
I think, no, we can't classify as Ahsoka at rock bottom. She's just reeling from shock.
Yeah.
She has lots of other ways of getting around her situation, which is totally emotional right now anyway.
I do want to point out two thematic things that end up happening that you're probably aware subconsciously unless you're kind of attuned to the music. When we first hear, or when Ahsoka first approaches the portal to go into 1313, we actually hear the Force theme play as she's approaching it. And then when she's looking over the edge into the portal, we hear it again.
Yep, this is where like adventure awaits.
Yeah, and like her contemplation of her path seems to be in alignment with what the Force is telling her to do, which is really interesting to see as well and hear.
Yes. It's cue to us, the audience, that this stroke of the machete will now reveal the path.
Yes. Thinking to yourself solemnly over a ledge with no railings.
And we also get some subtle things from this in the garage conversation about being good people and capitalism and how those two do not work particularly
together.
Well together.
Yes, there is a meta commentary about capitalism and almost like a Neil Scanlon's What We Owe to Each Other.
Yep.
Contractualism is that like we should do things for other people to allow society to run. Even if there is no reward.
Or especially if there's no reward.
Especially if there's no reward, yeah. It's just, it's a very philosophical conversation through the plot that ends up happening.
Exactly. And then we get the conversation about the Jedi.
Yes! This was interesting.
Jedi starting wars and policing everything. Because that is the view of the small folk.
Yep. And I don't know that we've gotten that much of it during the Clone Wars. Like, we've gotten a few moments where it's like, you Jedi, especially when we had the bombing in the Jedi Temple, and anytime that you interact with the common people, the Jedi are not seen as saviors any longer.
Nope.
And this allows Ahsoka to almost have a pause to reflect on her own experience. And even though she ends up defending them, she also is struck by how familiar it feels from her own position.
It's powerful because also the only people she's ever heard say those words before have been bad guys she's fighting.
Like Barriss and
and now here's just a normal person on the street.
Yeah.
Look how far the Jedi have fallen. You did your job well, Sheev Palpatine. Marketing galore to the lower classes.
He is a PR master. I feel like Ahsoka's journey is a little bit like when you need a change. You broke up with a boyfriend. She broke up with the Jedi, and you end up getting a bangs haircut.
Yeah.
Like, Ahsoka doesn't have bang or the ability to have bangs, so she ended up like basically falling into the underworld. Like, this is the exact opposite of the world that she came from.
This is where you have a fight with your family where you're like, no, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And you leave and you go goth, or you decide to wear all black. Or you're in a family of goth and you decide to go become a Christian evangelical.
Yes, this is very much like the decision of opposites. And it's interesting because throughout the course of this episode, and what really struck me and why I was like super excited about it when I watched it, was there is many discussions of light and dark and not really what is in the middle of those things, because it's hard to figure out. You know, not everything is just black and white. Not everything is just good and bad. Trace and her sister do very gray, dark things in an effort to live. Does that mean that they are bad people? And it's presenting this conversation through the course of the plot and the experiences of the people, and what they are saying in the episode actually frames the conversation, which is really interesting.
Yeah, here we've got two sisters. And,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. We haven't gotten the other sister yet, because Pintu Son-El and his two hired cyclopedic.
Yes, I was super excited. I was like, mythic stuff in my Clone Wars. I was like, cyclopes, yes.
Oh, okay, because it wasn't that mythic. They just got kicked in the nuts and
no, I know, but they did
cried.
Yes, but I was just excited to see like such a like a Cyclops in Star Wars. I was like, oh my god, Cyclops exist in Star Wars. Do they have a name yet? Do we know?
The two bouncers didn't have names.
Yeah, the two tough men.
They're not even. They're not even in the list of characters that are voiced. Because
I wonder if they'll have a name like when they do the deep dive episode on when this comes out. They usually release it on the Monday after.
Yeah, there's nothing as of yet. I do know that Pintu Son-El is a voice you've heard before in Star Wars.
It's Bobby Monahan.
It is.
Yeah.
Who plays?
He plays a character in Resistance.
Yep.
And I'm trying to remember because there is Flit and Orca. He plays Orca.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a very similar character.
Yeah.
It's like if Flit and Orca had a baby, it would be Pintu Son-El.
Well, and I don't like what kind of character was that?
That's
like,
not even the race isn't even defined.
It's cool. He's got the weird eyes and like the little like mouth tentacles and like yeah, very Star Warsy.
He's like if Johnny Five was a Star Wars alien.
Because of the eyes?
Yeah.
Because
he's got binocular eyes.
So he's come by to shake down Trace in an effort to get out the money that Rafa owes him, which is Trace's older sister.
Yeah, which is super, like, that's just, don't do that. If you're listening to this and you're a mob boss, like, you shouldn't be shaking down the family members for the debt that the one person in the family.
The little
just
sister?
go after the person. Yeah. But he knows that Trace will pay it.
Yeah. Whereas Rafa might weasel out of it. She seems smart. I have to say the character design, the costuming, the overall animation design, where we see on like Trace's face once she gets in the fight, we see the bruising was just beautifully done. Like everything. Yeah.
So Pintu decides I'm just going to take it out of your hide, which is also like come on. She doesn't owe the debt. Why are you beating up the person who does? That's like just picking some rando on the street and shaking them down.
It's like, I'm sure Rafa will pay me back now. Yeah.
So then Ahsoka offers to help.
Yeah.
She's like, I got this. Okay, maybe I don't got this. And it's time for some Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah,
Awesomeness.
the most kick-ass, yeah. She is basically a ninja.
Yes. Yep.
But I mean, that's what you would be if you were a Jedi and you didn't have your lightsabers anymore and you just were there. You would be that powerful.
She just wipes the floor with all three of them.
I appreciated the nut shot.
Oh, absolutely. My highlight of like the entire show
fight,
at this point.
Yeah.
Off they go.
Yeah.
Leaving through the front door with which they came, tails and nuts tucked between their legs. And
the best line.
The best
line of the episode.
Where did you learn to fight like that?
My big brother taught me.
My older brother taught me.
Yeah. If you were not moved by this, so I have a few things to say about this. So first and foremost, it shows us a lot about how Ahsoka thinks about Anakin Skywalker. And that's the relationship that they have had for the years that they have been together. Because at this point, because it's nearing the end of the Clone Wars went on for almost 3 years. They have been together for 3 years. That's how she views him. It also tells us a lot about how no matter what the Jedi dogma has said about attachments, no Jedi was beyond attachments. No matter how much you were like, don't get attached to your master, don't get attached to your Padawan. We see it with Obi-Wan, we see it with Anakin, we see it with Ahsoka. Like, it was just not something that was ever tenable with the Jedi.
She never pauses. It's not my older brother taught me, where she has that hesitation, tries to figure out what it is. She's very clear, very cogent, quickly to the point. And I think there's a lot of that there too. But it's also like, how can she succinctly describe this relationship to somebody so that they would understand it?
I thought about that and I said, I thought, my commanding officer might have been a thing.
But that would reveal more than...
I know.
Yeah.
I was just thinking.
Totally.
Because, she's a Taruga, so there could be other, things that this human in 1313 would not understand.
Yep.
But she doesn't view Anakin that way.
No. And she could have been like this douchebag who wouldn't stand next to me when the time was important.
Guy taught me.
Yeah.
That would have been a really good...
That would have been a good answer too.
I actually do have a throwaway question for people who might know more than me. Is Trace named Trace after Tracy Canobio, who is the main PR person for all of the animation group?
Or is she named Trace because Gone with a Trace
is cute?
Is cute? I don't know.
I don't know.
But maybe it's a good time to talk about the fact that this episode is one of the ones that was done previously.
It wasn't done previously.
It was. It's done previously.
Well, no, it was concept worked.
Okay, well, so this episode existed previously in some fashion. I don't know. I didn't see any of the things that you watched. I did not care as much about Clone Wars as you did to follow along with all the other things. But Trace and Rafa did not exist.
Yes, there was a previous
iteration, and that was Nix Okami.
Oh, yes, Nix Okami, yeah.
And Nix Okami was cast. Nix Okami had a voice actor, and all of their lines were already written and read. And so and I was wondering, because there's a couple points in this episode where the conversation is happening between Ahsoka Tano and Trace.
Yeah.
And it doesn't quite fit. Like, the emotional tension is a little high for one character and a little lower for the other. And then it's the other way around on another set of lines. Like, the emotional beat doesn't carry for me.
I didn't notice that. Yeah.
But I also, having done so much voice work at this point, saw some of those disconnects. And I'm wondering if they re-recorded all of Ashley Eckstein's lines for this version of it. I'm guessing they would have had to in order for her to say the name, but she doesn't really say Trace's name very many times. So, nonetheless, Nix Okami
Was supposed to be her boyfriend.
Well, he was supposed to be the character that she interacts with, and
Yes.
they've cut and replaced him with these two women characters.
Yes.
Like, come on.
The fight happens in the concept art that they presented at Celebration.
Yep.
On like Ahsoka's Lost Days.
And the voicing and whatnot was probably there too. I don't know for sure.
No, I don't think that they had recorded anything because Ashley wasn't aware of any of that before they presented it to her. It was all in concept still. Concept and story.
Well, the voice actor for Nix Okami is already listed. He has
Oh, wow. Okay.
bio and the lines and whatnot. Maybe he gets to come back at some point. That would be great. But they took him and cut him into two women because Ahsoka Tano's not allowed to have a boyfriend. So
I've thought about this because it was one of my original beefs about changing out Nix Okami to two women. And like literally almost a year from now is Celebration, the anniversary of Celebration, that I saw like the trailer for this. And I was like, I can't believe they got rid of her boyfriend. But as rare as quality romance is in Star Wars, female friendships are rarer.
that's true. Yeah, usually if another woman enters the show,
the woman has to leave.
the previous woman dies.
Yeah, or
So-
has to leave or is left behind on a base. Like women can't be in proximity to each other. So as rare
well, you
as
only need one at any given time
Kyle.
in Star Wars vision.
Well,
That's why Val dies. So
I think that's because literally Val dies before Kira comes onto the scene. Like, okay, so I think as much as I complained about this previously, this is actually very important, and I have, I give in. I agree that it was better to have three females interacting for scenes, literal scenes. Is this one of the first episodes that passes the Bechdel test? Maybe.
there's no men to talk about.
I know. Well, they talk about the guy that likes trying to shake them down for money, but
Pintu?
but no, seriously, I think it's just a really, there's an episode where Padme and Ahsoka hang out, but they talk about Anakin. So I don't know. It made me think, it made me question, and this female friendship that ends up developing is actually very important, and I'm very invested in seeing. So,
Well, the two girl younglings, Padawans, they talk in those episodes as well,
yeah, but like,
and not about the
it's the
male
whole,
guys,
it's
so.
the whole group together and
Fair.
stuff. So I don't know. To me, this was just a very important thing to actually show, and
Yes.
and I changed my mind about it, as I am allowed to do with reflection.
Absolutely. Also, the lens of this episode has Ahsoka as the protagonist,
Yes.
and she has left the Jedi Order, so we are introduced to other characters where she will create new relationships with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of nice that we went from a bunch of Bad Batch episodes that don't have any women at all to very women-centric episodes
Yeah.
that are all about struggling, making their way. But let's be clear, both these Martez women, they're business owners.
Yes.
One owns a laundromat, the other owns a garage.
Well, I do have a comment about the laundromat. So they finish up in the thing. They decide to go and be like, okay, Rafa, what's up? And they go to the laundromat, and we introduce to Rafa, who's literally going through people's laundry to find things that she can keep for herself.
Or just riffing through it to like, oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. But I mean, the double play on the laundromat is that it is a place where they launder things, that it is a place where they maybe take stolen goods, fix them up, resell them. Maybe they actually do launder money through there. Maybe, so that is the idea, is that it looks like a laundromat on the front, but it is not.
I'm like, who cares? It's still an actual laundromat that
I know.
works. And we got to see a Star Wars laundromat.
Yes, Star Wars, these exist.
That was so cool.
like the idea that people actually go to the fresher and you're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to think about that, but
And
it
yet,
exists.
Rafa is wearing dry clean only clothes. Like
Oh.
all of her clothes are dry clean only.
Very much.
That jacket is not going in a washing machine.
I love her outfit.
Oh my God. That's all I wrote was, I wrote her name and I'm like, where do I get this jacket?
I want her whole outfit. I will shave my head to cosplay as her at some point in the future.
She is,
The coolest. She doesn't make smart decisions, it feels like, but she makes smart in the moment decisions without much forethought for what problems could develop. And she was played by,
Elizabeth Rodriguez.
do we know much about her?
So yet another she's not really a voice actor. You know her from Logan, where she played Gabriella.
Okay.
She played characters and a whole bunch of one-off characters, except for she played one of the main characters, Diaz, in Orange is the New Black.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So she is not a voice actor at all, really. I couldn't find very many actual voice acting credits to her name. So her and Bridget are both pretty big faces, not voices.
Interesting.
But they have such a good relationship.
Yeah.
And their voices blend really well together. Like I get the feeling like these two actresses' voices, they fit.
They
really
fit
well.
as siblings. Yeah.
Yep. And their relationship. The only thing I didn't really, as their hair was so similar, I was like, sisters would never
Yeah.
both at the sides and back shaved to different hairstyles on top.
Yeah.
But it was, sure, whatever. They're sisters. This is the best we can do.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely shows that they're related. And we know that they don't seem to have parents. They still seem pretty young, like young adults, you know, in their early 20s, 18, 20s, somewhere in that range. But Ahsoka seems to be semi-peer related to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. But no parents.
No, but that's a
Common
Star Wars
problem
norm.
in a Star Wars norm. Yeah.
Yep.
Very much a Star Wars
If they
problem.
show you the parents,
Those
or
parents
any
are
sort
gonna
of
die?
guardians, those parents are going to die. Like, and so they're just getting that out of the way.
Yeah, I
They're
know.
already gone.
Pre-dead.
We don't. This is the cartoon version for kids.
For kids, the parents are pre-dead.
That's like Rogue One with our kids in the theater.
and then the parents die.
Yeah, in such like traumatic ways too, especially the mom.
Yeah, run, Jin, run. Yeah.
Anyway, back to the laundromat, which is actually a droid production facility.
They put together droids.
Yeah, or at least Rafa cons her sister into doing that out back.
I mean, she seems to do other stuff back there because it seemed like she indicated she does lots of stuff in the back. But one of those things is the droids. Because when Loken comes in, Locan.
Yeah.
What did you think of this Twi'lek? You're a fan of Twi'leks.
He seemed very... He's of the Bib Fortuna version of Twi'lek. He's in the underworld, does things on the down low, very, sleight of hand, especially with how he talks. He's unclear with what his meaning is because he's hoping it's getting picked up with the things he's not saying. He's not the dancer, bright, shiny, fashionable.
I mean, male
of.
Twi'leks very rarely are. I liked how much bling he was wearing on his Leku. I was like, this man is a stylish dresser.
He likes his finery.
Yes.
He was voiced by...
D. Bradley Baker.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can tell his voice wherever you go.
I mean, I can't. Yeah, I can. It was a little bit different than his clone voice, but it was still recognizable. He seemed lethargic. I don't know. So he hands over the 3 droids he needs assembling from parts, and we find out that they are, on first glance, binary load lifters.
Yes.
Which is Where would you recognize that from? You recognize that from
Your moisture evaporators are very similar to binary load lifters.
yes, which is something that he is very familiar with, C-3PO.
Yep.
And one thing about binary is that it's one of the oldest forms of droid language. And so we know that these forms of droids are actually very old from a design perspective, because if they communicate only in binary, it means that they are programmed with like the core protocols.
But they can't be that old
No.
because they're type 2.
They're type 2, yes. Yes. Just to specify. And then Ahsoka realizes that they are
Type 2 load lifters are a fraud. They were repurposed demolition droids prone to violence, which is some wonderful explication there. Which is some wonderful exposition there, Ahsoka Tano. I applaud your efforts to give us some immediate and quick exposition because
we talk about restraining bolts.
Chase scene.
No. I want to talk about restraining bolts first.
Absolutely. But that was the reason she gave all that exposition.
And the pre-conversation, because she's like, oh no, these droids are very dangerous without the restraining bolts. And Trace has this very pragmatic view about society and droids, which is some are good, some are bad, some are just wired bad. That's why we have restraining bolts to force them to be good in society. Oh my God.
What do we have for humans? Alcohol?
No, it's the
Death
society.
sticks?
It's the societal pressures. Like, that is what it is. To live in society, you are socialized to understand social norms. If you live outside of those social norms, you're controlled and put in jail, basically.
Yeah, right. So the restraining bolt is your super ego.
Yes, it is. Yes. From an explanation perspective. But she does say, like, people are good and people are bad. They're just programmed that way. Whoa. Another binary conversation.
But not binary.
But it's not binary because of what happens later on.
Right.
Which is really interesting.
I don't know if anything... Okay, yeah, we'll get to that because I want to know what you mean by what happens later on. Because she, like, even in that conversation, she's like, some are good, some are bad. The bad ones are just cross-wired.
Yep, to be that way.
But they could be good if you just fix their wiring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing. Does that mean everybody's good?
I think that what they're trying to say, and it was ineffectual, I think, in this relationship, and Mandalorian does it better, is that with enough love, anyone has the opportunity to be good. There's this scene where IG-11, the assassin droid, is reprogrammed to be a nanny.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, these binary load lifters have not been reprogrammed appropriately.
And the restraining bolts not applied effectively.
Yep. Although I did like Ahsoka's little hit on R2E.
I didn't notice what?
Which she was like, some of them, I don't really like droids. Maybe a couple of them. This one's no astromech.
Oh.
Yeah, she had a nice little R2E comment.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah. However, I will point out, she, in the very first season of Clone Wars, she likes droids.
Yes, she does.
She treats them as though they are people.
Yes, this is definitely, she has developed
and she has been burned by so many droids.
She has developed a bigoted attitude towards droids because of the Clone Wars.
Or because of the droids that she's had to interact with that have lied
Goldie.
to her and Goldie was the worst.
Goldie is the worst. But also the droids that have constantly tried to kill her for the past, years.
Roger.
Exactly. And, the bigger ones too. The destroyers, the
commandos,
the super
the Grievuses.
battle droids. The Grievuses. Yes. He's not all droid.
Enough.
Yeah. He's mostly droid. Mostly droid. Yeah, so we have an escape droid because they didn't apply the restraining bolts fast enough. Didn't socialize this droid well enough.
Nope.
And he escapes. This droid escapes into the underground city.
The main thoroughfares of 1313.
And decides to just start destroying stuff.
Oh my gosh. But this is kids' show. All he does is destroy property.
Yes.
So signs, lampposts.
Garbage cans.
parked vehicles.
Yeah.
No actual people are hurt.
So as far as our death toll,
we're coming into death toll here. I guess it's almost close, right? We're
and our
almost
death
at the end
toll for the Clone Wars episode.
Let me just scroll
5.
up. So season 7, episode 5, death count is...
Isn't it 0?
1 satellite dish.
Oh.
A repulsor, a compressor, and a sparker.
Oh.
That is what we lost.
Literally nothing sentient that we know
that
of.
satellite dish may have had several droid brains in it, but nonetheless, no. 0 organic sentience were hurt or robotic
sentience.
Robotic facsimiles of organic sentience were killed in this episode.
Wow, is that a first? I wonder for the Clone Wars.
I don't think it's a first for Clone Wars. There's several times where I can think off the top of my head where no one dies, but especially those youngling episodes.
Pirates die.
Only in the first one, and then kind of like the last one, but yeah, not always.
I mean, when they're on Ilum, no
losses there.
No losses there, just psychological stuff.
All the trauma where childhood is killed.
Where you learn to grow up or else.
So, Droid on the Loose, what did you think of this scene?
I liked how they worked together. It felt long. It was interesting. I liked how the little kid looked at Ahsoka when she used the Force and wanted to say something but didn't get a chance.
Yes.
I'm wondering how little kids view the Jedi versus adults and people who are exposed to the media of the day. And that, to me, that almost showed that there was a difference potentially. And little kids probably still viewed them as the mythic figures that they are. Yeah, it was okay. I felt like it was a little long.
I think it went a little long as well.
Yeah.
Especially it was because of the repetition of what the droid was doing.
Yeah.
And they just could not seem to stop the droid. I did like the end where there was this big gonna fall off a pit thing.
Yeah, and then Ahsoka had to use her force powers to force pull the whole ship, droid and Trace back on. The winch, so it made it look like the winch was doing the work, but it was obviously going to fail, and the little kid noticed, and
absolutely
the adults were not noticing, which I appreciated. So that, again, was the climax of the episode, right?
And we get Trace's thing, or who says this? See, nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Which is Trace, I think, right?
Yeah.
She's the eternal optimist.
And then once they have the droid back, they have the discussion about what they need to do.
Well, they go back to the shop, and then Rafa and Ahsoka have a fight.
Yeah.
Right? Which I please more Rafa than as a result.
Yeah. No, that was great. And then they were like, let's go meet at the wharf. And I was like, the what?
Yeah.
So there's
an ocean?
An ocean or a lake or a fake lake on Coruscant?
But then there wasn't really any water.
You saw a little bit of water.
Oh, I didn't see any water.
And a dock.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a big open air diner.
But there was water because there was a speeder that was going along on water that parked. And I'm like, what is this wharf?
I was just so focused on the yellow taxi cab.
Well, there's going to be a lot of 1950s design, but yeah, they go and hang out at the wharf, and she's and they're on a picnic bench almost.
Well, it was one of those open seats you would find at an open air diner.
Yeah.
I always picture people swinging by on rocket roller skates, delivering them their meals and whatnot. And I wish this scene had gone longer.
It was such a cool scene. I'm really looking forward to the next episodes where we get Rafa and Trace and Ahsoka in these conversations kind of about morality, because we get this very middle answer to what happened. It's well, I charged him double. I still had to sell him because what was our choice in this? Yep. And look, you can get new tools. Look, we survived another day. What choice do we have but to do things this
back in the laundromat.
Way?
Yeah. With Rafa.
Well, she sold the droids and and that was the end point of the discussion at the end, right?
Well, at the end where Ahsoka says, do you ever get a say with Rafa?
Yeah, that was a really important thing too.
Do you get to... You did all that work. You saw what occurred. You saw what that droid was capable of doing, and you still... Your sister still ran over you, and you still helped her. And then the look Rafa gave Ahsoka. Wow. I'm excited. I'm hoping that there's some great tension, relationship building between these three ladies in episodes to come.
Well, and it looks like our next episode is going to be Deal, No Deal. And it's Trace makes a rash decision after learning what they are transporting for the Pike Syndicate. And we know Pike's from the Solo movie. Also, they've previously been on Clone Wars.
Yep.
And they've got like these.
Aren't they referred to in TFA as well? When they're on the Millennium Falcon and the two different guys are...
No.
I thought Han Solo mentions them.
No.
Okay.
No. The Pikes are...
He mentions two different gangs?
Yes.
Okay.
There's Kanja Club and the Guavian Death Gang. But the Pikes specifically control the spice mines on Castle.
Right.
And they are an underworld organization, and they have these like kind of robotic looking heads with like
Pikes?
no tubes coming out of them. They seem to be in environmental suits, so it'll be really interesting to actually see some Pikes on screen again.
Cool.
Yeah. Any final thoughts about the episode?
Yeah, I totally thought that Ahsoka was leaving and was done, especially when Trace thanks her for saving her life, and Ahsoka's like, "Well, I'm done here. Goodbye." It's like, huh, I expected more from these characters, but then you've told me what's happening next episode. Trace is literally the first thing you say.
Yeah.
That makes me happy that we've gotten to see some more development between these two sisters and how Ahsoka may fit into this.
What I'm really excited about is that this shows, like, are people really to blame for the situations that they've been put in? Or are they just really just trying to make it through the day? You know?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's really some interesting moral questions that are being posed by this kids' cartoon show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode, but this episode felt short, even though some of the things went long.
Yeah.
And I think that's why. Like, there's only 8 scenes in this whole entire
It's really
episode.
interesting, yeah. That's like less than all of the Bad Batch episodes.
By
yeah.
almost half.
Yeah.
There's no cuts from one scene to another scene. It's all progressive.
And it's character moments where they actually have discussions about kind of weighty things like the war, and they're talking about morality, and they're talking about like right and wrong of the situations that they've been put in. It's like, well, what other choice do we have?
Yep.
Like, that's some complex stuff. It's very cool.
I was really happy with the writers, and of course it was written by Dave Filoni and Charles Murray.
Okay.
I don't have any information on Charles Murray. I was instead focused on the fact that it was directed by 2 gentlemen, which interested me, but I think it's because they did a whole bunch of work on it already, and then when they did the secondary work, it was by somebody else. So Kyle Dunleavy, who did the 3D story art for this episode, has given one of the director's credits, and then Saul Ruiz is given the other director's credit. Saul comes in first, so I think that from what I can conjecture, Kyle probably did a whole bunch of the pre-production stuff when they announced it, and then it didn't go through. And then Saul came in and did everything else. Saul's been involved in Star Wars at length. He's done like a whole bundle of episodes as the director for Resistance, Clone Wars, and Rebels. And he was a 3D artist on going back in time to Clone Wars and Rebels. Then he went on to do storyboarding for each of those episodes and then directed. So he is literally coming up through the ranks of Lucasfilm.
He is the whole pipeline.
Position of director. He hasn't really done a lot of stuff that I could see apart from Star Wars.
Okay, cool.
And Lucasfilm.
Well, that was this episode.
Oh, I'm not done though.
Oh.
Because you keep telling me great stories about Ashley Eckstein and how Lucasfilm goes to her to talk to her about the character because she's the one who inhabits the character.
It was like Dave will call her up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be like, what do you want?
And I just want to say, Dave, stop calling just Ashley.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of other amazing women who have been voicing Ahsoka Tano.
Okay.
And they've been doing it basically all along. So if you'd like to count along with me, let's all thank the other portrayers of Ahsoka Tano.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Do you know any of them?
No.
Of course not.
Forces of Destiny?
No, because all of these women voice Ahsoka Tano in a different language.
Oh, yes.
So we have Josephine Schmidt, who does the German version.
Okay.
and has the whole time.
This feels like the portrayal of the Frozen 2 song that we got on the Oscars, where it was all of the different voices of...
So I finished the episode today and I was starting to work on something else. And then the secondary credits started to roll. And I was like, whoa, I'm going to write all these down that I can.
Okay, no, this is really interesting. Start from again, okay?
Cool. So we have Josephine Schmidt.
German.
Yep. We have Leila Rangel, the Spanish one. Anna Guiomar, who does the Iberian one. We have Marketa Tikkanen, who does the Hungarian one. Olivia Lucioni, who does the French one, which I was like, Lucioni? Okay, anyway, she does the French one. Erika Nietzsche, who does the Italian. Fleur van der Water.
That's a dope name.
I know. Fleur van der Water does the Dutch one. Mona Greta Banterla. I'm going to screw this up. Mona Grena Banterla does the Ukrainian. Agnieszka Kudelska does the Russian. Ana Lucia Menezes does the Brazilian Portuguese one, and Linda Asland does the Swedish one. And then there are, and I could not get them because they were written in Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. Mm-hmm. So adding all of that up, there are 14 other women who have been doing Ahsoka Tano.
Interesting.
Just as long as Ashley Eckstein has.
Interesting. No, and that's a really, really good point, because we've gotten a lot of complaints about, like, what if Ahsoka has to be voiced by other people? It's like, well, it happens.
Well, it's already been happening.
Yes.
The voice of Ahsoka Tano for all of these other people who love Clone Wars in different languages is that person. Mm-hmm. And has been that person the whole time.
I want to see a picture of all of them together.
I have some pictures of all of them on my desktop.
But like all of them together? Like they met up? I want to see them all together.
That would be cool if we had got to see all of the Ahsoka Tanos.
This is my plea to Ashley Eckstein to get all of the Ahsoka Tanos together globally.
It's pretty cool.
That's so cool.
And a lot of them don't have a ton of credits. They have principally the credits of having done Ahsoka Tano. So
that's so cool. Interesting. Anything else? I'm looking forward to this arc. I suspect that by the end of it, we're going to find out that Ahsoka has run into Maul again, and that's going to lead us into our final arc.
I'm hopeful there's more than just the final arc, because if there's 4 episodes, that's only 12. In ways that are different from the Bad Batch. Mm-hmm. I feel like there is a story that's being told here that is relevant to Clone Wars history and is going to tell us something about where Star Wars is going to go.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to watch the episodes and then see.
Yeah, I'm super excited for some Ahsoka Tano as an adult woman.
I think she's in everything going forwed, so...
Going through her quarter life crisis.
She's not even out there. She's like at a fifth life crisis. She's like almost 18. Maybe she's 17.
That sounds like the right age for... I don't know how long to grew to live. So
fair. Yeah. Well, it's exciting. I'm enjoying this episode. This was like... The Bad Batch was a very specific type of episode, and this felt like a breath of fresh air. So it was cool.
This was a new path.
Yeah. To bring it back around. Well, thank you, Kyle, for joining me on this and bringing all of your notes, because you take so many notes.
I try.
Where can people find you if they're looking for you online?
If you want to find me online, you can find me at Tavern Tales DM on the Twitters.
And thank you again. Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is orchestral music composed by Christy Carew for What the Force. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We'd like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force. Melody, Night Huntress, In Wild Space, Susan, Jessica, Brad, Anna Perez, Macau Mom, Neil, and James. Make sure you like and subscribe on your podcast app of choice or on YouTube. Leaving a 5-star review on iTunes helps other people find the show. You can connect with us on Twitter at What the Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook, or on our website, whattheforce.ca. We also have a new Discord. Links are available in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.